Hi, Maya. This is Ellen. I'm very happy to see these essays from you. Let's take a look and see what you wrote here. The topic is active video game players by country. The numbers that you see here are in millions, so let's see what you wrote about this. The bar chart provides information about the number of current video game players in 8 different nations for the year 2012. Overall, video games were very popular in the United States, while Italy and Spain had the least number of gamers at all. All right, so let's just pause here for a moment. There are a couple of things that I want to change. On the whole, I like it. On the whole, it's fine. But more specifically, there were a couple of things that I wanted to change. The first thing that concerns me is your length. It's really short. Now, you may or may not know that nowadays word count is not penalized, not just as word count. But what happens is when you do write a short task one, you're probably not going to get a good score for task achievement. So what used to happen is they would penalize you for not writing a lot of information. In other words, they would give you, like, say, for example, a 5. And then because your word count was really low, they would give you a 4. So they would drop it down another band. They don't do that anymore because it's basically a double penalty. But you're still going to get really dropped down for not having a lot of information because it's just 115 words. And I can tell that just straight away looking at it. The challenge with these kinds of bar charts or any other kind of chart that doesn't really have a lot of information is how to extend it in order to have a meaningful, full kind of answer here. So we're going to get to that. But before we do, I want to fix the first 2 sentences that I actually read. So the bar chart provides information about the number of video game players in 8 nations for the year 2012. Current is wrong because this is, 2012 and we're, considerably further in the future than that. So to call them current is absolutely incorrect, especially when in the same sentence you have 2012. Overall, video games were very popular in the United States, while Italy and Spain had the least number of gamers. Full stop, not at all. Okay? So you could have just stopped your sentence there, and that would have been fine. Now let's see how you dealt with your details. The United States was a leader with 85 million people playing video games annually. The second country was Brazil with just above 40 million people. Germany had a little more than the United Kingdom, both of them with around 35 million gamers. France had 26.7 million gamers, and Turkey's gamers count was above 20 million. The least number of gamers were in Italy and Spain with 17 million and 16 million people respectively. Okay, so here's the good news. The good news is that your grammar is fine. Your grammar is good. Your grammar is accurate. I didn't have to correct anything here. The other good thing is that you had a nice range of structures. It wasn't like the United States was first, it had this. The Brazil was second, it had this. Germany was third, it had this. You didn't have that. And so that's good. However, despite the fact that you didn't have that and that lack of range, what happened was that this still felt very much like a mechanical reporting of the figures. What on earth do I mean? I understand. Okay, so this is a term that IELTS examiners like to use. They like to throw around. It's basically that there's no sort of flexibility in the way you're writing, in the sentences, in the order, in the analysis of what you're looking at. So you took these and you said first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, etc. And that feels rather inflexible, and that certainly feels mechanical. Mechanical meaning like it could have come from a machine. So as I said, you did have a nice variety of language, but still you could have done more. So what do I mean? The United States was 85, and then the second highest country was Brazil, and you said it was just over 40 million. There's a lot more to say here. You really need to emphasize just how big this difference is. So you should have said that United States was 85 million. It was by far the country with the greatest number of gamers. In fact, the second country in terms of gamers was less than half of the figure of the United States. So you need to make these kinds of connections. You need to emphasize this kind of information, because the difference between the first country and the second country is more than double. And that's the kind of information you need to point out. So there were places where you could have done something here as well. Yeah, okay, you're going to go down the row here. You could have done something interesting here. So, for example, you could have said the next three countries all had between 30 and 45 million players. So you could take advantage of these numbers here and use a range. And that's really a wonderful way of grouping and of extending your answer. So that might be something I would have done. So the following countries had a range between 30 and 45 million gamers per year. More specifically, Brazil was at 41.8 million gamers, but the country that followed it, namely Germany, was approximately 4 million less, 4 million fewer. Okay? The same pattern continued for the United Kingdom at 32.7. So you see, you've got a pretty stable, gradual kind of decrease here in the numbers. So those are the kinds of patterns, and those are the kinds of things you're going to want to point out in order to get yourself considered for a higher band score in task achievement. All right, really kind of seeing how these figures relate to each other, grouping them together appropriately. Okay, so assuming you did something similar here with these next three numbers, when you get to Spain, which is the last figure, you want to definitely emphasize it that it's the lowest figure in the entire bar chart. And you could even do some, multiplication here. You could say, you could write a conclusion here. You don't need to write a conclusion, and you don't need to, especially if you have written an overview. But sometimes I find that some answers really kind of lend themselves to conclusions. And I think this is one that works. So you could have said something like, in conclusion, the United States at 85 million players was the country with the highest number of video game players, whereas the country with the least, Spain, was approximately 6 times less, or had 6 times fewer video game players, something like that. So show the connection. Where do these connect? What's the connection between this figure and this figure? So those are some things to think about, okay? I hope that's helpful. I hope that gives you some ideas on what you can do. Now let's take a look at your essay on international marketing. I see that you tell us here that you spent about 50 minutes. You know that, of course, that's probably too long. You should aim for about 40 minutes for this and about 20 minutes on the other one, including your correction time. The other thing that concerns me, again, is your word count. It's 231 words. Just to reiterate, you're not going to get marked down for your word count per se. Certainly an examiner is going to consider that your task achievement is probably not as high, not as fully developed as it should be. So let's see what you wrote here about international marketing. International marketing can be a significant concern for a country's well-being, but at the same time, it is often argued that it is vital and has a huge impact on distributing different ideas and diversity of language and culture. Well, that's a lovely sentence so far. I totally agree that international marketing has many more positive effects and not outweighs the drawbacks. Overweight is somebody who is a little too heavy and is heavier than they should be. Okay, international marketing is obligatory because we can have products and services we can never have otherwise. For example, for countries which do not have access to the sea, can buy ocean fish from other countries. Moreover, by selling and buying goods and services, we will need to communicate, so we will have to learn the language and know more about their cultures. For instance, people were amazed by silk first and started learning about how to use it. Okay, so this is interesting. Let's see. At first, I was a little concerned about this portion of the essay, this portion of the paragraph, because your description here doesn't really sound like it's about international marketing, but more like it's about trade. And I say that because you're saying that international marketing allows us to have products and services we couldn't have otherwise. And that's true for international trade, which really is like a blanket for international marketing. But this really should be more specific about the marketing of these products. How are they promoted? How are they kind of disseminated? How are they advertised to their target audience? So, talking about this really didn't feel particularly relevant to me. And then you should have had a full stop here, and this should have begun a new sentence. And speaking of this new sentence, I really didn't feel like this sentence was also relevant. It's more talking about trade, international trade. It's certainly not talking about marketing, about, how maybe, geez, I don't know, a product produced in China is then advertised to a German market in order to, grab a nice market share there. So, this is what international marketing is about, and I don't feel that neither the first sentence nor the sentence about the fish were accurate, were appropriate here. So, here you said buying and selling goods and services, we will need to communicate, so we will need to learn the language and know more about other cultures. Okay, that's all right. It's a little there were a couple of things that troubled me about this. It was accurate, but it was very safe. So it's all very elementary grammar. There's nothing really happening that, or vocabulary even, that feels particularly higher level. So this was okay. Buying and selling we will need, but it's not entirely accurate and certainly not natural either. So for me, something that would have been more accurate would have been something like, moreover, through the selling of the buying and selling of goods and services. That would have felt a little more natural than this. But again, you're talking about trade. You're not talking about marketing. And that's where my major concern is. So again, not entirely on topic. It is a little tangential. So it would be marked down in task achievement. Let's see. And if you can look at it, a lot of the language, like I said, it really feels rather basic. Then, for instance, people were amazed by silk first and then started learning how to use it. Okay. I thought you could have done more with this. I thought you could have been more specific. How does this relate back to what you just said? How does this relate to international marketing? So I kind of understand where you're going with this. You were confusing international marketing with international trade. You're trying to tell us that silk came from a particular country and then was marketed to other countries. I understand all that. However, it's not enough for me to just understand it because I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. The point is that when you're writing an essay, whether it's for IELTS or any other reason, you need to absolutely hold the hand of your reader and take them through your thought process step by step. So you should never assume that your reader understands why you're mentioning silk. I think I understand why you're mentioning it, but there should be no question mark. There should be no room for misinterpretation. You should really clearly express all the ideas that you have here. So, however, international marketing does have its negative effects, such as losing local manufacturers and production of local products due to cheap analogs. This should be no apostrophe because it's not it is, but it's possessive. Don't know what you mean by analogs here. For example, some countries export all the textile products from cheaper countries, so their they import all the textile products from cheaper countries, so their local textile community will never have profits. In addition, countries can lose their unique qualities by exchanging experiences and ideas, such as production of one type of cheese and copying it by other nations. All right. So, what's happening here, Maya, is that this is not about international marketing. It's about globalization. It's about international trade, but definitely not about international marketing. So, one thing you can do to remedy this is to do some research, look online, see what international marketing is, so you can get a better feel of this. Again, I felt like there was more to say, that you could have kind of wrapped it up a little better. Let's take a look at your conclusion and then we'll talk a little more. In conclusion, I concur with the view that international marketing is vital for our cultural exchange. However, I completely understand that it has its no apostrophe negative effects on the local economy. All right, so fine. We've already said that it's underdeveloped, even from the word count, but even without that, you could tell that it just needed a little more development, a little more illustration. The first part of the essay talks about international marketing being invasive and intrusive. You talked a little bit about that. You talked essentially about the financial concern here. Now, the positive side asks you to talk about it being a necessary and economical form of education in addition to spreading ideas, language, and culture. I didn't really get that here. I don't really feel like you covered any of those areas. So this too felt rather off topic. Because it didn't really feel like you were answering the question. So you were supposed to be talking about all these layers. And I know this is rather complicated. It's necessary. It's an economical. So in other words, a cheap form of education. It spreads language, ideas, and cultures. None of that was really covered. So I kind of just felt like this was a discuss the positives and negatives of international marketing. But that's not what this essay asked you to talk about. It was really far, far more specific. So that's what you needed to do. So you're going to find that in an exam situation, you would have not probably as high of a task achievement score as you would like. That's for sure. And as I said before, I felt like a lot of this grammar, a lot of the vocabulary was very safe. I didn't feel like it was particularly advanced. So that would be a concern as well. I want to recommend to you, Maiya, to sign up to the online course with us. I really think that you're going to find information that's going to help your task achievement improve. So your topic development, your your grammar, your vocabulary. You'll get some information that will help you to improve and to write sentences that are that really have that wow factor. So take a look at the online course with us, see if that's something you would be able to sign up for. And I really hope we can see you on it. I think it's going to make a world of difference. Okay? So best of luck to you. Thanks a lot for sending these in, and I look forward to seeing more work from you.